Hello there. Welcome. Tonight we'll journey through a time when Siberian tribes followed the woolly rhinoceros through frozen tundra. The large, snowy lawnmower with a horn was not subtle, and honestly, it had better winter gear than most of us do. So before we begin, let me know where you're tuning in from. And if you're new here, know that this video is designed to help you relax, or even fall asleep, while your subconscious drifts back in time to the mammoth steppe, where people walked behind a shaggy rhinoceros that cleared snow like a very serious plow. The morning begins before the sun decides to participate. The cold air holds its breath. The river is a sheet of iron pretending to be water. Our small band stirs inside a windbreak of hides and poles near a limestone outcrop. Smoke squeezes out through a flap because smoke always does what it wants. Everyone moves slowly on purpose. Slowness saves energy, which saves the day, which in turn saves tomorrow. Someone coaxes coals that survived the night. A handful of dry grass becomes courage. A sliver of birch bark becomes commitment. Breath becomes wind in a very small storm. The ember brightens. A flame stands up, and the camp pretends it believed in the fire the whole time. The first sound beyond breathing is the faint scrape of a flint over antler. Edges get woken up before people do. A spear shaft is warmed above the coals to straighten a stubborn bend. The sinew used yesterday shrank nicely. It hugs the stone point like it paid rent. Birch tar sits in a little lump, glossy, smoky, older than anyone here, older than jokes about anyone here. The woolly rhinoceros is already out there, moving where the wind burned the snow thin. Its head swings low. That huge curved horn is not a museum label. It is a snow shovel with opinions. The animal pushes drifts aside to reach tough grasses and sedges. Every sweep writes a wide path across the steppe. Humans pay attention because the rhino is doing unpaid trail maintenance. Following is efficient. And efficiency is the one luxury the Ice Age allows. Our people have a relationship with cold that is less romance and more firm handshake. Hair is long because scissors are myths. Fur is thick because fashion is coercion. Clothing is stitched with bone needles that squeak through hide like tiny door hinges. Nothing is tailored. Everything is negotiated. Gloves are a dream. Mitts are reality. Boots are hide wrapped around feet that have opinions but few rights. Breakfast tastes like what it took to get it. The stew has the personality of marrow, roots, and last week's heroics. It is not the cuisine you boast about. It is the caloric math you keep doing silently. A child attempts to auction a carved reindeer for a second scoop. The elder counters with a stare that does not require translation. Economics will evolve later. For now, it is all barter with gravity. We stand outside the shelter for the first brief report of the day. It is quiet in the dramatic way. No birds yet. No wolves speaking about business. Just the soft click of ice expanding in the riverbank. On the horizon, there is a hint of rose, the kind of color that feels like the sun signed a guest book but did not promise to stay. Away to the north, the ground lifts into low bluffs. Larch stands scratch the sky like polite claws. The wind has teeth, but today it is not biting very hard. Tracks tell the morning news. Fox loops like cursive drawn by an impatient writer. Reindeer hooves point neatly toward the basin, and then away. A single broad trench from a woolly rhinoceros crosses the rise. Snow is scraped into two deliberate ridges. Between them is grass chewed to stubble. The trench continues past a dwarf willow tuft, then turns where a black patch of wind crust made the digging easier. The rhino reads the ground like a map. People learn to read the rhino. Moving camp is not glamorous. It is lifting, tying, retying, and then pretending knots were obeyed the first time. Poles are lashed into a sled that drags rather than rolls. Rawhide creaks like old wood that learned to speak. Bundles get stacked by weight and by hope. A skin bag of water refuses to be light. Someone mutters about inventing wheels. Someone else points at the landscape and declines that challenge for now. Dogs weave through legs and gear like thoughts. They are not pets. They are colleagues who audit smells. One trots ahead and tries a heroic stance on a drift, slides down, and pretends that was the goal. It is fine. Everyone here has fallen in public. We begin to follow the trench through the light that is not yet day. Steps fall into a rhythm because walking is a drum people carry under their ribs. The surface shifts from crust that holds to powder that does not. The result is a choreography of polite swearing. The elders do not hurry. The young pretend energy is infinite and then do not pretend as much. The middle group looks forward, backward, forward again, counting bodies the way you count precious things without using numbers out loud. The rhinoceros keeps its own pace somewhere ahead. It is not running. It is working, scraping, chewing, moving on. It needs a lot of food for a body that is a persuasive argument for insulation. The hump over its shoulders is a warehouse of fat. The coat is a franchise of hair. The ears are small because ears lose arguments with cold. When it swings its head, it clears a lane that would take 6 people half a day. The tribe follows because you do not ignore free engineering. Hunting a rhino is a decision with consequences. It is possible, but it is also fine to live a long life with both hands. Our band mostly follows for access to cleared forage, for the hare tracks that intersect the trench, for the reindeer that drift in behind the rhino like shoppers after a snowplow. Sometimes a calf lags. Sometimes a sick animal sleeps too hard. Scavenging is not a failure here. Scavenging is a scholarship program from the landscape. We pause at a low knob to breathe like we mean it. Breathing is work in cold air. Particles of frost hang glittering. The child sticks out a tongue, immediately learns science. We watch the basin for movement. There is a flicker near the willow belt. A ptarmigan lifts, white on white. The dog pretends not to notice to preserve dignity. By late morning, the sun admits it is responsible. Shadows appear, short and honest. The wind drops a level. The trench passes through a patch of sedge that the rhino demolished with the dedication of a gardener who votes for mulch. We kneel and pick leftover blades. They smell like old tea and useful vitamins. Into the carry basket they go. Roots get probed with a digging stick near the willow stools. The ground says try again somewhere else. We do. The elder explains with a hand. Small humps in the snow mark the rhino's pause points. When it breathes hard, crystals collect at whiskers. The horn sometimes leaves scratches on the crust. The tail scribbles in irritation where the wind disagreed. Children learn this literacy because the tundra writes in snow, not ink. It erases overnight. Tomorrow's lesson plan is always new. Education by weather is relentless and somehow fair. Tools appear because pauses require activity. A microblade is snapped from a prepared core with the quiet pop of flint obeying physics. It becomes a tiny knife glued into a slot on a bone handle. If you are imagining futuristic precision, you are not wrong. The future has been stealing from the past for a while. Sinew threads twist between fingers that never stopped working. A pouch of red ochre rides at the waist, occasionally dusting everything because pigments predate laundry by a dramatic margin. We eat something that is both humble and spectacular. Shavings of frozen fat, a few dried berries rescued from autumn, strips of meat that taste like yesterday's effort and tomorrow's gratitude. No one claps. Everyone chews. Calories are applause with better manners. The tundra is not empty. It is busy in a very quiet way. Under the snow, small rodents dream about seeds and get visited by owls who do not ring doorbells. On the ridgeline, a raven watches us with the same calm contempt it uses for wolves and mountains. Ravens are very generous with opinions. When we drop a scrap, the bird arrives with professional efficiency, then leaves with a note filed under keep, befriending these primates. We find another segment of trench turning along a line of reed canary grass. The wind had shaved it thin. The rhino took advantage. We do too. On one side of the path are reindeer pellets that steam a little in the air. That means fresh, which means a herd crossed recently at an angle arguing with geometry. We look, but do not sprint. Sprinting is a short film with a bad ending in this temperature. Names exist here, but they do not behave like later names. A girl is called First Snow because she arrived during it. A man answers to Left Scar because that is where the scar is. The woolly rhinoceros has a name that translates roughly to the pusher of white. It is not poetry. It is logistics made affectionate. When someone says the pusher turned east, everyone knows who and what and why later matters less than now. We pass the bones of an old kill half buried in drift. Ribs arc like an unfinished sentence. A jaw grins out of habit. Someone taps a long bone, listens for the sound that says, marrow is still a possibility. Not today. The elder marks the spot on an internal map that is better than any drawing. There will be a day when this becomes important again. The land is a pantry if you have a good memory and modest expectations. By midday, the light is slightly generous. The cold is slightly less argumentative. We stop where dwarf birch makes a thin screen against the wind. Hides get spread like tablecloths made by wolves. The small fire is reborn from a traveling ember kept in a bark cup. We are essentially carrying a very lazy sun with us. Children huddle around it and offer hands as if hope requires fingers. We speak softly because air seems expensive in long stretches. Jokes are simple and careful. Someone points at the dog, claims it is secretly a reindeer in disguise. The dog yawns widely, does not deny. The elder tells about a winter when the trench of the pusher of white led straight to a windless hollow full of grass. Everyone nods with the seriousness of people listening to a weather report from a reliable station. The rhinoceros continues its deliberate practice somewhere ahead. We can tell from the rhythm of cleared patches. The distances between them are regular, as if measured by a patient metronome with a horn. It does not hurry because hurrying wastes heat. It does not dither because dithering wastes daylight. It is better at being here than we are, which is both humbling and extremely useful. After food, there is fixing again. Because everything in this world is a repair project pretending to be finished. A binding is rewrapped. A hole in a mitten gets introduced to a thread of twisted sinew. A boot sole receives the gift of more rawhide. The smell of warmed hide and birch tar is this culture's perfume. It says, competent. It says, not dead. It says, we can keep going. The sky develops sundogs out on the sides. 2 faint companion suns standing guard beside the real one. It happens when ice crystals tile the air like a polite mirror. The effect is dramatic, but nobody applies for tickets. It is just another weather face to file under remember this. The child asks if there are 3 suns now. The elder answers yes today, and smiles with the kind of rare softness that does not use teeth. We move again, following the next stripe of scraped snow. The trench steps onto a low ridge where wind lives part-time. Up here, the crust is stronger. The walk is easier. The conversation returns to its favorite topic, which is not words. It is the quiet sound of leather against hide, of snow squeaking under weight, of beads clicking gently on a wrist. All the music that never made it into a museum because it belonged to walking people. A tuft of hair lies on the path, coarse, brown, stiff as straw. The child picks it up and holds it across a sleeve. It matches the dream description we all share. Woolly rhinoceros, very nearby earlier, possibly nearby still. We place the tuft back on the snow out of habit, like returning a piece of someone's coat to the hook. The dog confirms with a serious sniff, then sneezes like a critic leaving a short review. We do not push to catch the animal. We settle into following like clouds follow mountains. It leads us to better ideas than we would have alone. We learn where the wind is kind today, where grass stands taller because of a fault in the ice beneath, where willow hides its buds from things that chew. This is not just about meat. It is about maps written by hooves and horn and stubborn appetite, and how humans became very good at reading them. Later there will be a lean tent raised in the lee of a snowbank. Later there will be fish chipped from a hole where the river allows a conversation. Later there will be a story about a rhino scratching ice off a fallen log with the kind of focus that makes you admire large decisions. For now, we keep the pace that suits breath. We cultivate the ordinary, which is where survival grows best. If you are drifting as you listen, it is fine to float with the footprints. The trench pulls a line across the plain. We move along it with the laziness of people who know that speed is a rumor. Somewhere to the east, a herd of reindeer bargains with wind. To the south, a fox edits our footprints looking for footnotes that taste like lunch. Overhead, a raven writes opinions across the sky using only its voice. The elder stops at a shallow depression where snow is polished smooth. She taps it with her staff, nods. This was a bed last night, warm ground under drift. The rhinoceros slept here. Nose pointed into the wind like a ship. It rose with the first light and moved on because it knows the same rule we do. Stay and you become a detail. Move and you remain the sentence. We follow at a respectful lag. not to chase, just to learn. The world offers a curriculum today made of grass stems, horn arcs, and the arithmetic of hoofprints. We mark the lesson with small decisions. One more snare set along a fence of willow. One cache dug where the ground loosens. One glance up to measure how much day is left in the pale disk above. When the wind returns in a short fit, we tuck scarves higher, which is to say, we argue with cold using fabric that used to be a reindeer with a different schedule. The fit passes. We pretend we were not intimidated. We are very brave when weather is distracted. The trench descends into a shallow swale and disappears into crust that did not need clearing. That is the note that tells us this chapter is paused. The rhinoceros had enough. Turned toward the low grass near the frozen stream. Maybe it will circle back. Maybe it will not. It does not report to us. It never did. We are readers of its book, not editors. We stand a moment and let the quiet fill all the small places that busy thoughts were trying to live in. Then we turn slightly. Choose a line that keeps the wind at our shoulder. Choose a rhythm our legs can afford, and step into the next hour, carrying the map that a horn drew for us across the white page of the tundra. The light has not climbed far. The sun hovers low as if it forgot its appointment with the sky. It does not bother to rise much in this part of the world. A full day is basically a long sunrise that gave up early. Our band keeps moving because bodies are warmer when they argue with distance. The trench of the woolly rhinoceros stretches ahead like a ruler pressed into snow by an impatient giant. It is both invitation and warning. Follow this, but keep your expectations polite. Every step crunches with that peculiar squeak snow makes when it is colder than good manners. It is the sound of air complaining under your boots. The children like it. They stomp extra hard. The adults pretend they are too dignified to enjoy squeaky snow. But every so often someone presses down just to hear it again. The dog trots ahead with the optimism of a creature who thinks every hole in the snow is a mystery novel. He shoves his nose deep, exhales clouds, pulls back sneezing, then pretends he solved the case. We pause at a frozen willow grove. The shrubs huddle together like gossiping neighbors. Twigs poke through the crust like fingers pointing at excuses. Here the rhinoceros had stopped. Scrape marks show where its horn shoveled snow to the side. Beneath the white lie chewed sticks stripped of bark. The rhino chews willow like humans chew ideas. Badly, but persistently. Children test the stripped branches, chewing too. Faces twist at the bitterness. A grandmother nods approvingly. This is medicine, not candy. Boredom is treated with willow bark too. An elder crouches to show how the rhino's tracks deepen at pause points. The broad three-toed print is pressed deeper here than on the move. You can see where the weight shifted to one side. The toes splayed slightly like a clumsy snowshoe. She gestures with her hand. This is how you know it rested before moving on. The tundra is an open notebook if you learn to read its handwriting. The tribe follows. They do not walk directly in the trench. It is too obvious, too easy to collapse edges. Instead, they pace alongside, copying the rhino's efficiency but leaving their own script beside his. Hunger taps on the door again. It always does, earlier than you want. A boy pulls a strip of frozen meat from a pouch and gnaws. It is hard as wood, but wood never had so much protein. His sister watches, waits, then asks politely with eyes. He breaks the strip in half because family is a system of negotiations with no lawyers. The adults open a pouch of dried berries saved from a warmer season. They are wrinkled, tart, a little sticky with sugar that forgot its manners. The children chew as if these were sweets worthy of festivals. The elders smile because every generation forgets that berries are not dessert, but they let them think otherwise. The dog receives a sliver of fat tossed into the snow. He eats with such speed you would swear he feared it might crawl away. Then he looks betrayed that more was not immediately forthcoming. Dogs mastered guilt-tripping long before they mastered fetching. The wind changes sides. It slides now from the east. It drags a curtain of loose snow across the plain like a lazy broom. Everyone turns slightly to keep cloaks angled against it. No one complains aloud. Complaints spend energy. Silence is cheaper. Ahead, the trench leads toward a shallow depression. The snow is pressed smooth there as if something very large had settled down for a nap. The elder points. This is last night's bed. You can tell from the melted crust where breath lingered, from the frost crystals thick around the edges where the heat of a rhino body met the frozen air. The child crouches at the depression's edge, runs fingers across the hard surface. Eyes widen as if touching history while it is still warm. The grandmother chuckles softly, says the animal was probably here while we slept. It feels like the past almost shaking hands with the present. Nearby, small tracks cross the rhino's bed like notes scribbled in margins. Arctic hairprints, bounding away in zigzags. One stops at a sudden depression. A tuft of white fur left behind tells the rest of the story. A fox ate well. Life is a banquet and an obituary written in the same snow. The tribe moves again. The trench climbs a ridge of wind-scoured gravel. Here the snow is thin. The ground shows patches of frozen moss, crunchy like glass underfoot. They pick at it. Some moss goes into pouches for bedding. Some just reminds them that food wears disguises. The dog spots a ptarmigan under the drift. He leaps. Snow explodes. The bird bursts upward like a pillow losing a fight. White feathers scatter into the wind. The dog lands with mouth full of nothing. Looks back pretending he never intended to catch it anyway. Humans laugh softly. Not too much, because laughing is energy, but enough to remind each other they are still more than chores. The child copies the dog's leap, lands face first in snow, emerges with a frozen nose and pride that refuses to melt. Everyone pretends not to notice the tears that follow. The ridge opens to a wide step that looks like a frozen ocean paused mid-wave. Ridges of drift, hollows of shadow, stretches of shining crust where the wind polished with an iron hand. The rhino trench cuts across it with deliberate confidence, straight, unwavering, as if the animal knows a destination the humans can only guess at. They follow still, not because they plan to meet the rhino face to face, but because the rhino is the best teacher of this landscape. It finds grass where none should grow. It finds water under ice by listening with its horn. It writes a map with every push of snow. A map humans would be foolish to ignore. Afternoon tilts the light a little warmer. Shadows stretch like tired bodies across the snow. The group pauses to rest against a bank of dwarf birch. Twigs snap easily. A small fire is coaxed from a coal carried in a bark container lined with ash. Fire is always the roommate you cannot live without and cannot trust either. They drink melted snow warmed in a skin bag hung over the fire. It tastes of smoke, leather, and survival. The children grimace. The adults sip slowly like it is wine worth respect. The dog laps some from the snow where it spilled, immediately sneezes half of it back. Food again, strips of dried fish chewed into obedience. A marrow bone cracked with a hammerstone. Fat scooped out with carved antler spoons. The taste is heavy, greasy, perfect. It clings to throats and ribs. It sticks to fingers that no one bothers to wipe, because wiping is for warmer seasons. The grandmother tells a story. Her voice is rough with smoke and age. She speaks of a winter long ago when a rhino led their people to a valley of grasses uncovered by wind. She describes how they survived there for moons while others perished. The children listen wide-eyed. The adults nod slowly. Half of them know the story already. But stories are not for newness. They are for remembering together. As she speaks, the wind dies briefly. The silence is so complete you can hear the fire cracking bones of wood. You can hear the snow groaning under its own weight. You can even hear the faint rumble of your own stomach trying to edit history. Tracks appear in the snow, fresh, broad, pressed deep. They follow parallel to the rhino trench but veer toward the basin. The elder squats, traces the outline with mittened fingers. Woolly mammoth, heavy, maybe 3. The prints march like drums, wide and steady. For a moment the group hesitates. A mammoth is wealth and danger in equal fur coats. But today is about the rhino. They file the mammoth prints away in the mental atlas of tomorrow and keep walking the horn-made highway. The horizon darkens slightly with incoming cloud. The sun tries to argue but loses fast. Shadows blur. The world becomes a white-gray painting sketched by wind and erased by snow again. This is normal. Siberia does not promise variety. It promises repetition until you understand. By late day, the trench curves into a shallow valley sheltered from gusts. Snow here is thin. Grasses poke through like tired hair. The rhino has scraped large patches already. The humans stop. This is camp enough for tonight. The sled is lowered gently. Hides pulled loose and arranged into walls against wind. Poles stabbed into crust and tied with sinew lashings. The shelter takes shape slowly but reliably. Everyone works. Because in this era, there is no such thing as a spectator sport. The fire is reborn again. Sparks climb into the dusk like insects chasing heaven. Shadows press against the hide walls but cannot enter. The pot sits on flat stones with rabbit bones and dried roots waiting to become broth again. The smell is thin but promising. Children huddle near the fire, chewing on bones that still hold phantom flavors. A man sharpens a flint blade against another stone. The scraping sound is steady as heartbeat. A woman threads sinew through a tear in her hide cloak. The thread pulls tight with a little song of friction. Outside, the dogs bark suddenly. Short, sharp warnings. The camp freezes. Ears strain. The dark answers with a howl stretched thin by distance. Wolves. Not close, but close enough. The fire is fed more wood. Sparks leap higher. Everyone leans slightly nearer its glow. The elder says softly that wolves follow too. They follow the rhino like humans do. They follow us like we follow them. Life here is a long chain of following. Each link depends on the next. The children ask if the wolves will attack. The elder shrugs with honesty. Maybe, maybe not. The stew thickens. Bowls of bone are passed around. Each scoop is a negotiation between hunger and fairness. The dog receives its share tossed onto snow, devours it with noisy gratitude. The wolves in the distance howl again, as if reminding the dog which family it came from first. Night descends like a tired blanket. Stars pry through cracks in the cloud. The fire sighs lower, but still enough. Always enough. The people lie under hides on the frozen ground, bodies pressed together for warmth, breaths mingling into one heavy rhythm. Outside, the rhino is still moving somewhere under the moon, scraping, plowing, living. The trench it leaves will be tomorrow's road. And for now, in this small shelter, against this enormous silence, survival feels ordinary, which is the highest luxury of all. The fire still glows in the middle of camp, embers red like tired eyes refusing to close. Smoke crawls up through the flap in the hide roof and slips into the night air. The shelter creaks as the wind tests it, pushes at the seams, then loses interest. The family sleeps pressed together like stones in a riverbank. The dog stirs once, ears twitching towards something in the dark, but settles again when the silence remains heavy. Morning here is not a sunrise so much as a shift from black to gray. The sky brightens reluctantly, as if waking up costs it something. The elder is already moving, stirring the embers, coaxing flame from stubborn coals. Every morning is a repeat of yesterday's persuasion, yet it always feels like an accomplishment. A pot is placed back onto the fire, last night's broth reheated into something new. A few strips of dried meat are added, a handful of roots saved from the last gathering. The smell grows slowly, fills the shelter, pushes hunger awake. Children rise with groans. Their hair is tangled with frost, their noses red from cold air leaking through hides in the night. They shuffle toward the fire, half asleep still. The dog stretches long, shakes snow from his coat, yawns as if he carried everyone's dreams alone. Outside, the snow crunches under the elder's boots as she checks the traps set along the willow fringe before dusk yesterday. One is collapsed with nothing. Another holds tracks where an animal sniffed and rejected the bait. But the last has success. A hare struggles weakly. She ends its struggle quickly with a practiced hand, wraps it in hide, and carries it back. The hare is skinned with a flint blade sharpened so often it is smaller than the original core. The hide is stretched to dry by the smoke, the meat sliced thin to join the morning stew. Children lean close to watch the careful cuts. It is both lesson and food. One cannot be separated from the other. Breakfast is passed around in bowls carved from bone. The broth is hot, thin but filling. Fat floats on the surface like gold coins in water. Each mouthful is swallowed with gratitude hidden under quiet faces. The dog licks its share directly from the snow where it is placed, wagging once as thanks. After eating, tools are checked, spears examined again, binding retied with sinew that tightens as it dries. A stone flake napped against a core. Sparks jump once. The edge forms slowly. A necklace of small bone discs rattles softly as a woman leans over her work. Even here, decoration survives, not because it is practical, but because being human means declaring presence in more than utility. The sled is packed again, hides folded stiff with frost, baskets tied down with rawhide strips. The children complain at carrying small bundles, then are reminded that hands must always carry something. Empty hands are wasted hands in this world. They obey with sighs that turn to mist in the air. Tracks are read outside camp. The rhino trench is visible still. Snow scraped aside in wide bands, frozen earth showing beneath. New prints overlay old, deep, fresh three-toed marks leading toward the horizon. The tribe nods. The animal has not left. It is still carving its slow road ahead. Following rhythms, each step presses new holes into the crust of snow. The wind is light this morning. Small mercy. The group falls into line again, sled dragging behind, dogs weaving from side to side, sniffing at every drift. The trench leads into a shallow basin. Here the rhino has cleared wide circles of snow, patches of sedge pulled up by strong lips. The ground looks raked by some enormous gardener. The tribe pauses to collect what the rhino left behind. Stripped grasses still hold seeds in their husks. Roots loosened by its horn are pulled out fully by human hands. Nothing is wasted. Children scatter across the basin, chasing after ptarmigan startled from the grasses. Their laughter is thin, carried quickly away by the air. The birds escape, of course. They always do. But the chase warms legs and hearts for a while. The adults smile faintly at the noise, then turn back to collecting what is useful. By midday, the sky glows pale blue for a short window. Shadows stretch longer across the snow. Lunch is whatever fits quickly into the pot above a small fire sheltered by rocks. Rabbit meat boiled again, roots softened until they surrender. The group eats quickly. They do not linger. Lingering invites cold into bones. Afterward, the trench leads onward. The rhino's trail is steady, almost mathematical, curving only where land requires. It ignores obstacles smaller than itself, plowing straight through drifts and pushing aside branches of young willows. The people appreciate its stubbornness. Following it is easier than cutting their own way. A wolf track crosses the trench, large paws pressed deep into snow. The prints are fresh. The dog growls low at the scent. The elder says nothing but keeps the group closer together. Wolves follow the rhino too, waiting for calves, waiting for weakness. The people understand this rhythm. They respect it, fear it a little, but they accept it as part of the same chain that ties all lives here together. By afternoon, the trench enters a wide plain swept by wind. Here the snow is hard crust. Walking is easier. The sled slides more smoothly. The dog trots with ears forward, nose twitching. The group makes good pace for a few hours without realizing how far they've gone. In the distance, dark figures move slowly across the whiteness. At first they look like rocks. Then they shift, lift heads. A small herd of reindeer, grazing at the edges of the rhino trench where snow is already pushed aside. The tribe watches silently. Hungry eyes linger, but the herd is too far. The energy cost too high for today. They let the reindeer pass, filing the memory for another time. Clouds gather again toward evening. The horizon dulls. The temperature begins its steady fall. They must stop soon. The elder chooses a low ridge with natural shelter from the wind. Hides are stretched again, poles planted into frozen ground. The camp takes shape as quickly as stiff fingers allow. Fire is coaxed again. Flame rises with reluctance, then steadiness. The pot is set with what remains of the rabbit and roots. Hunger is patient but demanding. Children crowd close, cheeks red, eyes glazed with exhaustion. The elder tells them softly that the rhino they follow is also resting tonight somewhere near. It will rise tomorrow and scrape again, and they will rise tomorrow and follow again. The child asks why they follow. The elder shrugs. Because it clears snow, because it shows us food, because it is wiser at surviving here than we are. The answer is simple, but it is truth. The night deepens quickly. Stars pierce the sky where clouds drift open. Wolves howl again far off, this time closer. The dogs bristle but stay near the fire. The people wrap hides tighter, spears placed within reach. They do not panic. This is normal as hunger, as normal as cold. The stew is finished, the bowls licked clean, nothing wasted. The fire burns down to embers. The group lies close under hides. The elder stares at the glow until her eyes close at last. Somewhere in the dark, the woolly rhinoceros shifts its great weight, scrapes snow aside with its horn, chews slowly, steam rising from its nostrils into the frozen air. It does not know it is being followed. It does not care, but in its endless search for grass, it carries a family along with it, teaching them survival without words. And so the day closes again, quietly, deliberately, under stars that seem to have been watching forever. The wind returns in the night. It creeps under hides like a thief without manners. The fire fights but shrinks low. Embers glow like old eyes refusing to close. The dog stirs often, ears flicking at noises the humans do not hear. Wolves are near again. The morning is born gray, a smear of light through heavy cloud, not sunrise so much as the sky deciding to keep existing. The elder stirs first, as always. She kneels at the hearth, coaxing flame from reluctant coals. Breath becomes wind, bark becomes kindling. A flame climbs again. It is always the same battle. It is always the same victory. The stew from last night is reheated. Its taste is memory and necessity. Thin broth with rabbit bones gnawed until they gave up. A few roots softened into something chewable. Nothing is glamorous. Everything is survival wearing yesterday's outfit. Outside, tracks cross the snow near camp. Broad, padded, too many to count. Wolves. They circled in the night, watched the fire, listened to breathing. The dog smells them and growls low in his chest. Not anger, just honesty. The elder gathers the children, shows them the prints. She traces the edges with a finger, points at the depth, explains how fresh they are. It is a lesson disguised as warning. Wolves live here too. We are not guests. We are competitors. But wolves and people have always been complicated neighbors. Sometimes enemies, sometimes partners. The dog at the fire is proof of that strange treaty. One wolf decided once to sit closer to human flame than to other wolves. And generations later, the partnership still works, mostly. The group follows the rhino trench again. The snow is scraped wide, grass stalks broken. Small piles of dung frozen mid-thought. The trench is fresh. The animal is near. They walk quietly, listening for the heavy scrape of horn against snow. But the tundra answers only with wind. A child asks if they will ever see the rhino face to face. The elder chuckles softly, says you do not need to see the spirit to follow its path. The child frowns, not satisfied. Children prefer faces over metaphors, but the answer holds. As the day stretches, the trench leads them past bones half buried in drift. Mammoth ribs arch upward like a ruined cathedral. A skull lies tilted, tusks broken. The elder gestures for silence. Everyone approaches slowly. They kneel by the bones, touch them with reverence. For the Siberian tribes, these are not just leftovers, they are monuments. The mammoth is both ancestor and resource, sacred and practical. Its bones serve as walls for shelters. Its fat once burned for light. Its ivory carved into charms. Even in death, it remains part of the community. The grandmother sprinkles a little red ochre onto the skull. Her hand trembles. Her face stays serious. This is an offering, not decoration. The ochre is iron ground from earth, a color older than speech. It says we remember. It says we respect. It says we would like to keep surviving, please. Children ask if the mammoth was killed by hunters, or by wolves, or by cold itself. The elder shrugs, says it was killed by being alive. That is how everything ends. The children laugh nervously, not sure if it was a joke. The adults nod slowly, because it was also a truth. They scavenge carefully. A rib large enough to carve into sled runners. A shoulder blade smooth enough to scrape hides. A broken tusk that can become points and tools. Nothing wasted, nothing abandoned. The mammoth may be gone, but it continues to help. The rhino trench pulls them onward again. They follow through low valleys where willow hides under drifts, over ridges where the wind exposes bare stone. The sled groans. Dogs pant. Children drag feet but keep moving. The horizon never seems closer. Yet somehow it changes anyway. In late day, they find another sign. A depression in snow where the rhino bedded again. Steam once rose here in the night. Frost crystals sparkle like spilled stars around the edge. The elder crouches, presses her palm flat on the frozen surface, closes her eyes. For a moment, she is listening to an animal that is no longer here. She says quietly, "The rhino dreamed here." That matters. The others nod. They do not ask what the dream was. Some things are not answered with words. They move on. Camp that night is made against a limestone bluff. The rock blocks the worst of the wind. A fire reflects off the pale surface, painting orange across white stone. After food, after warmth, stories begin. Stories always do. One tells of a man long ago who tried to kill a rhino with only 2 spears. He struck once, then twice, and both points broke. The rhino turned, charged, and the man realized quickly that bravery and foolishness are cousins who never admit it. He climbed a tree that was not strong enough for either of them. The rhino shoved until the tree broke. The man leapt into a river and swam for his life. The rhino did not bother to follow. It just went back to eating grass. The lesson: Do not annoy something built like a boulder with legs. The children laugh at the picture of a man flailing in icy water. The adults smile too, because humor is survival's secret sidekick. Another story tells of wolves and men following the same rhino trench together one winter, each waiting for scraps, each watching the other. At night they both circled fires. The wolves howled. The men sang. Neither attacked. It was a truce written only in hunger. The fire burns low as the stories drift off. Sleep claims the camp again. Outside, the rhino keeps scraping, its horn plowing snow as it always has. It does not care who follows. It does not know it is history in motion. It is just hungry, which is the oldest religion of all. Morning comes again, gray and reluctant. The trench is still there, fresh, wide, pointing toward another day. The tribe shoulders bundles, pulls the sled, and follows once more, step after step, across a world so empty it feels full of silence. Each crunch of snow is a drumbeat, each breath a prayer, each glance at the trench a reminder that survival is not heroic, it is ordinary. It is footsteps behind a rhinoceros that never asked for followers. And so the journey continues, slowly, endlessly, one day into another, across the tundra that keeps secrets better than people do. The gray morning stretches itself into another day. It does not brighten so much as become less dark. The tundra does not perform sunrise. It simply admits to existing again. Our people stir slowly, wrapping hides tighter until the fire is alive enough to justify moving. The rhino trench still lies before them, scraped wide and deep, a frozen signature written in the snow overnight. It points east now, bending slightly where the land folds into long ridges. The elder studies it as if it is a letter from the ground. She nods once, says the animal moves steady, slow, predictable, like the seasons. The group eats from the pot reheated again. Fat glistens on the surface like tiny suns. Roots boiled until they surrender flavor grudgingly. Children chew quietly. Adults sip in silence. Each mouthful is less about pleasure and more about permission to keep walking. The sled is repacked. Dogs are harnessed loosely with rawhide cords. They do not pull like later generations will. They simply walk alongside. Part guard, part guide, part family that refuses to pay rent. The dog yawns widely, sneezes snow, then trots ahead as if he invented the trench himself. The journey continues across a wide plain swept by constant wind. Snow forms ripples that look like waves on a frozen ocean. Each step crunches loudly, then disappears instantly into silence again. The trench is always ahead, a reminder that someone larger cleared the road for them. Children ask why they keep following. The elder answers softly, because the rhino finds food, because it knows the ground better than we do, because it is the only guide that never lies. The children nod, then ask if the rhino will ever wait for them. The elder laughs, says the rhino does not know we exist. That is the truth of following. By midday, they reach a stretch where the trench has widened into great bare patches. Here, the rhino scraped not just snow, but even the top layer of frozen soil, exposing sedges tough as wire. The people bend to gather what remains. Roots twisted but edible. Stalks brittle but chewable. It is not feast, but it is calories. A grandmother pulls one stalk, chews slowly, shakes her head at the bitterness, says this is medicine more than food. The children imitate her anyway, then spit discreetly into the snow when no one is looking. Being human means pretending you enjoyed what survival demanded. The group pauses near a cluster of willow shrubs bent low under frost. A few snares are set here, twisted loops of sinew balanced on bent twigs. The elder shows again how to mask the human scent with soil and crushed leaves. The children watch closely, because tomorrow's food begins with today's lessons. They walk on again, slowly, steadily. The trench cuts over a low ridge. On the far side, reindeer prints scatter like punctuation marks around the rhino's path. The herd had come here too, grazing where snow was already cleared. The people read the ground like an open story. The rhino feeds, then the reindeer feed. Then humans arrive to scavenge what remains. The tundra writes no secrets. It only repeats patterns. Clouds thicken by afternoon. The horizon blurs into a smear of white and gray. The wind sharpens its teeth again. The sled groans under frost that gathers on its bindings. The dog whines softly, but keeps moving. At last, the elder raises a hand. They stop near a limestone ridge where the rock rises like a wall against the storm. The place is chosen not because it is perfect, but because it is less terrible than the open plain. Camp is raised again. Poles planted deep into snow, hides stretched against the wind. Smoke curls upward quickly into the storm until it vanishes. The fire is coaxed again with birch bark, fat wood, and patience. Dinner is small tonight, only roots, scraps of dried meat, a little marrow sucked from bones that have already given most of themselves away. The children eat quickly, licking bowls clean. Adults chew more slowly, stretching each bite as if time itself could add calories. Afterward, stories again. The grandmother begins, her voice rough with smoke and cold. She speaks of the rhino as if it were a spirit walking the earth, not just an animal. She says it carries the strength of the ground in its horn, the patience of winter in its stride, the memory of rivers in its eyes. Children listen wide-eyed, imagining a creature larger than life. Adults nod softly, because myth and truth are often the same thing told in different clothes. The rhino clears snow. It gives grass to herds. It gives paths to people. It does not know it is a god, but it is worshipped anyway. The elder adds another tale of a man who once tried to ride the rhino. He leapt from a drift onto its back, clung to its fur like a burr. The rhino shook once, then twice, then tossed him so far he landed in a river half a valley away. The tribe laughed for 3 days, and then decided never to try again. Some lessons require volunteers. Laughter echoes faintly in the hide walls. Warmth seeps into bones for a moment. Wolves howl again in the distance. Closer this time. The dog bristles, growls, but stays near the fire. The people feed more wood to the flame, reminding the dark they are not easy prey. Night falls heavy. Stars blink only in gaps between clouds. The wind moans like an old flute across the ridge. Inside the shelter, bodies press close again, sharing warmth more reliable than any fire. Somewhere in the dark, the rhino moves still, scraping, pushing, chewing. It does not pause to listen to wolves. or to stories. It only follows hunger, and in following hunger, it creates survival for everything else behind it. Morning again, another gray smear pretending to be light. The trench is still there, stretching east, unwavering. The people rise stiff, hungry, tired, yet alive. They eat thin stew again, repack the sled again, tie hides again. The rhythm is unchanging. Repetition is survival's quiet song. They follow once more. The dog trots ahead, tail lifted, ears stiff. The children shuffle behind. Adults steady their steps with spears and staves. The trench curves north now, toward a basin shadowed by low hills. In the basin, they find new signs. Not just rhino, but wolves, paw prints fresh in snow, circling the trench like notes in the margin of a book. The elder frowns. Wolves are closer than before. The group tightens together, spears held ready though no wolf appears. The dog growls low but keeps moving. Hunger links all creatures here. Wolves follow the rhino too, waiting for scraps, waiting for weakness. By midday, the trench leads them to a hollow where the rhino had dug deeper than usual. Here the snow is scattered wide, grass shredded, twigs broken, droppings fresh. The animal fed long here. The people kneel to gather leftovers, pulling roots, breaking twigs with buds still hidden. It is small food, but enough for today. Camp is made early in the hollow. The fire crackles brighter than usual with willow gathered nearby. The stew tastes better only because hunger is seasoning that never runs out. That night, the elder speaks again. She says following the rhino is more than walking behind food. It is learning the world through the eyes of something older, stronger, more patient than humans. She says survival is not about conquering this land, but about copying those who already belong to it. Children drift to sleep listening. Adults stare into fire thinking. The dog curls near the flames. Wolves howl nearby, answered only by silence from the camp. The rhino keeps moving somewhere ahead, scraping, plowing, writing tomorrow's map in snow with every sweep of its horn. And the people know when they rise again, they will follow, as they always have. The tundra wakes slowly. The wind is tired today, drifting only in small sighs across the plain. The sky is pale with no opinion. The trench of the rhinoceros points forward as always, steady, patient, unwilling to vanish even under fresh snow. The group walks after it with the same rhythm as yesterday, and the day before, and the week before that. Repetition here is not boredom. It is discipline taught by hunger. Season by season, these people follow the animals. The woolly rhino in winter, when snow lies thick, when grass hides beneath crust and only a horn can reveal it. In summer, they follow herds of reindeer moving north. In autumn, they circle back toward rivers swollen with fish. But winter belongs to the rhinoceros. The trench is more than a road. It is a seasonal promise. If you follow it, you will eat. You will find reindeer grazing where the snow is already cleared. You will set snares where hare paths cut across the horn-made highway. You will warm your hands at fires built in places the rhino once lay down to rest. Children learn the rhythm early. They know to watch for frost crystals thick at the edges of the trench. That means the rhino slept nearby last night. They know to look for willow-stripped bear. That means the animal lingered long enough to feed there. They know the difference between droppings that are fresh, steaming still, and those that are frozen hard, nothing left but shape. Each sign is a kind of scripture written on snow and soil. The rhino is not a god by choice, but it becomes one through usefulness. When storms roll across the tundra, hiding the horizon, the trench is the only guide that matters. No stars, no sun, no clear landmarks but the scraped path itself. Without it, the group would wander blind. With it, they move with confidence through whiteness that erases everything else. At night, when fires burn low, stories make the trench sacred. Elders tell children that the rhino is older than people, that it walked these plains before language, before spears, before shelters built from bone. They say the horn was carved by winter itself, shaped not for battle but for digging into frozen earth, that its scraping is an act of mercy, clearing grass not just for itself, but for all creatures who walk after it. The children ask if the rhino knows it is helping them. The elders smile faintly, shake their heads. No, it only follows hunger. But in following hunger, it feeds everything else. And maybe that is enough to call it holy. Shelters change with the season too. In summer light, hides stretched on poles are enough. In winter, bones of mammoth and reindeer are gathered, stacked into frames, covered with hides heavy as the cold itself. Smoke stains ceilings black. Firelight flickers across ivory ribs turned into walls. The people sleep inside skeletons of giants, protected by the same animals they once hunted. At one camp long ago, mammoth tusks were found arched into entryways, bones arranged like ribs of houses. Some say spirits lived in those bones. Some say it was only architecture made from whatever the land gave freely. Either way, it worked, and working is what matters when cold gnaws at every breath. Even tools change with migration. Summer knives from bone and wood. Winter points chipped sharp from flint carried long distances. Birch tar soft in warm months. Brittle and hard in frozen air, yet always present. Because glue is older than pottery, older than metal, a quiet invention that never needed celebration. Dogs, too, are part of this migration. They run ahead, sniffing trenches, warning of wolves. Their eyes shine in the firelight at night, reflecting not just light, but partnership older than memory. They eat scraps and lick bowls, but they also guard. They are reminders that survival sometimes begins with a truce between species. Spiritual rituals bind the tribe together in the long dark. Sometimes red ochre is sprinkled on bones of scavenged animals. Sometimes a simple chant is sung around fire before a hunt. Sometimes charms carved from ivory are tied to spears, not because charms change outcomes, but because belief strengthens the hand that throws. One such ritual comes every winter solstice, the longest night, when the sun barely rises before retreating again. The tribe builds a larger fire than usual. They feed it with bone, wood, fat, saved through months. Sparks leap like stars from the flames. Elders tell the children that this light keeps the world turning back toward warmth. They say the rhino too feels it, turns its horn toward spring because of this fire. Children stare at sparks as if they could push the sun back into the sky with their own eyes. Adults smile at the faith, knowing the earth moves with or without fire. But they keep the ritual anyway, because tradition is warmth even when science does not notice. The tundra is vast, yet strangely intimate. Each ridge, each frozen stream, each willow grove holds stories. One valley is remembered because a mammoth calf died there, feeding people through a long storm. Another ridge is remembered because wolves chased them away one night, forcing them to leave fires behind, still burning. The rhino's trench ties all these places together, like a thread sewing patches into one long coat, a coat made of memory, hunger, and repetition. During migration, hunters sometimes leave offerings where trenches cross rivers, a carved piece of antler, a small bead of bone, a smear of ochre on ice. These are not bribes, not payments. They are acknowledgments, a way of saying thank you to something that never asked, but gave anyway. Children carve little rhino shapes into soft wood, horns exaggerated into curves like crescents of the moon. They play at following with sticks dragged through snow, copying the trenches they walk every day. Even their games are echoes of survival. Food is always a test here. Rabbits in snares sometimes. Reindeer if luck and stamina agree on the same day. Fish chipped from holes in frozen rivers. Fat boiled into broth until it coats mouths like armor against cold. And always marrow, cracked from bones with stone hammers, sucked greedily, valued above all else. When a reindeer herd is found grazing behind a rhino trench, the hunt begins with careful planning, spears sharpened again, sinew bindings tested, hunters spread wide to encircle, moving slowly as if snow itself is watching. A shout, a thrown spear, chaos, blood steaming in frozen air, then meat for weeks, hides for clothing, bones for tools. But hunts are rare victories. More often survival is stitched from scraps, leftovers, things ignored by wolves, roots dug with frozen fingers, berries found under brush by accident. The tundra rewards patience more often than courage. At night, the fire burns down low again. Embers glow under ash. People lie in hides, breathing slow. Their dreams mix with the sound of wolves howling across the plain. The dog lifts his head, listens, then settles again, knowing his family is safe enough tonight. And somewhere ahead, the rhinoceros still scrapes snow aside, still pushes horn against crust, still chews slowly on grasses tough as rope. It is unchanged by myth, by ritual, by worship. It is only hungry, and in its hunger, it carries entire tribes with it through the long, frozen tundra. The journey does not end. It only repeats. The trench is written again and again, across seasons, across years, across lifetimes, until even memory begins to follow it like footprints behind a giant shadow moving through endless snow. The morning is colder than usual. The air tastes sharper. Each breath scratches the throat before sinking into the lungs. The fire struggles at first, smoke curling sideways in the heavy stillness. The dog whines low, ears twitching toward the ridge above camp. Fresh tracks were found nearby at dawn, Not the broad three-toed marks of the rhinoceros. Not the neat, sharp hooves of reindeer either. These were wide paws pressed deep into snow, claws visible at the edges, cave lion. The elder crouches over the prints, tracing them with one finger. She does not smile. She does not frown. She simply reads the story left behind. A lion passed in the night, not far from where the children slept under hides. The track is large, heavy. The cat is strong, hungry perhaps. The group gathers close. Spears are checked again, bindings tightened with frozen fingers until sinew bites deep into wood. The dog growls softly, but falls silent when the elder snaps her fingers. Sound travels here, and sound is invitation. They move on quickly, following the trench again, staying close together. Eyes scan constantly. The open tundra is deceptive. It looks empty, but emptiness here is always crowded with possibility. The rhino trench is a blessing, but it is also a magnet. Everything follows it. Wolves travel its edges looking for hare and reindeer. Lions cross it in search of the same prey humans do. Even the occasional hyena, bigger than any hyena alive now, stalks along its frozen borders. Predators respect the rhino, not because it is dangerous in the way cats are, but because it is dangerous in the way boulders are. It does not chase. It does not strike first. But if threatened, it becomes an avalanche with legs. No one wins a fight with a rhinoceros that outweighs a horse several times over. Humans respect it too, for the same reason. They do not hunt it often, and when they do, it is with risk measured carefully. For now, they prefer the trench for what it brings after. By midday, the sky is pale blue again. Shadows stretch long across the snow. The group pauses to rest near a frozen stream. The water beneath the ice gurgles softly, as if muttering about the unfairness of winter. Spears are laid down carefully. Fire coaxed again from the traveling ember. Meat boiled thin with willow bark. Everyone eats quickly, because the wind eats faster. The elder tells a story while they chew. She remembers a winter when lions shadowed their group for days, always just beyond the ridge, their silhouettes black against white horizon, never attacking, only watching. At night, the lions roared, shaking the hides of shelters like thunder made of hunger. By day, they walked when the humans walked, stopped when the humans stopped. The trench led both groups together like reluctant partners. Finally, one night, the lions drew closer, their shapes visible just beyond the firelight, glowing eyes like 24 stars at ground level. The dogs barked until voices broke. The hunters threw flaming sticks into the dark. The lions did not run. They only blinked slowly, then melted into the night without sound. The next morning, their tracks led east alongside the rhino trench. The lions had chosen to keep following the horn rather than the fire, a decision that saved the tribe. The children listen wide-eyed. They imagine glowing eyes blinking from the snow even now. The adults nod slowly. They know predators are not stories here. They are neighbors. In late afternoon, the trench leads them past the carcass of a reindeer half buried in snow. ribs torn open, frozen blood black against white ground. Wolves fed here recently. Prints circle the body. Tails dragged lines in the snow around it. Ravens already plucked at scraps. The smell is faint but sharp. The dog growls again. The elder motions the group away. They do not need to scavenge this one. Better to leave what wolves already claimed. There are rules in the tundra that no one speaks but everyone obeys. As dusk falls, they find shelter against a ridge of rock. Hides stretched again. Fire lit again. The same rhythm repeated. Repetition is the song of survival. After food, stories circle again. A grandmother remembers when hyenas followed the group, larger than modern hyenas, with jaws that cracked bones like dry twigs. They laughed in the night. That eerie laugh hyenas carry even when nothing is funny. The sound unsettled even the bravest men. The hyenas trailed them for weeks, feeding on scraps, taking what was left from rhino trenches, never attacking directly, but never leaving. Shadows with teeth. The fire crackles. Sparks drift upward like lazy stars. The children pull hides tighter, imagining those laughs outside the walls again. The dog curls close, tail wrapped over his nose, pretending he is asleep, but listening still. Sleep comes slowly. The night is restless. Wind moans across the ridge. Wolves call again somewhere to the north, but no lions this time. Not yet. Morning gray again. Another day begins. They follow once more. This time the trench climbs into a valley with steep sides. The snow is deeper here, sheltered from wind. The rhino's horn has carved wide furrows, exposing grasses thick enough for reindeer to gather. The group watches silently as a small herd grazes ahead. Antlers rise and fall like slow waves. Breath steams in pale clouds above each animal. Hunger whispers loudly. Spears are raised quietly. Hunters spread slowly across the trench, careful not to spook the herd. The dog waits stiff, tail rigid. But before the humans can move further, wolves appear at the far edge of the valley, a dozen gray bodies trotting in silence, eyes fixed on the same herd. The wolves fan out, mirroring the humans. Another band of hunters sharing the same classroom. For a long moment, both groups stare across the snow, humans on one side, wolves on the other. The reindeer in the middle still chewing grass like oblivious students between two rival teachers. Then the elder lowers her spear. The wolves do not flinch, but they do not attack either. They only stare, waiting. At last the wolves move first, slinking into the brush at the valley's edge. The herd scatters north, antlers flashing in panic. Snow erupts in clouds beneath hooves. The wolves chase after them with silent determination. Humans watch quietly, not moving, not interfering. The dog whines with frustration, but even he understands. The hunt today belongs to wolves. Tomorrow might not. The tribe gathers roots from the rhino's trench instead. Small food, but safer. They leave the valley slowly, knowing this is how the tundra works. Not everything is yours. Not everything is meant to be taken. That night, as the fire burns down low again, the elder says softly, following the rhino is not about owning the land. It is about surviving in it alongside everything else that claws, howls, and hungers here. The children ask if the wolves will always take more than them. The elder smiles faintly, says no. Sometimes we take, sometimes they take. The tundra is a scale, always shifting, never balanced for long. The morning does not arrive with light today. It arrives with wind, shrieking across the tundra like something alive and irritated. Snow lifts into the air in long white veils, blinding, erasing horizon, swallowing footsteps before they finish echoing. The camp stirs reluctantly. No one wants to leave the fire, but fire cannot follow the trench. Fire cannot find food under snow. Fire can only eat wood, and wood is scarce here. The decision is not about comfort. It is about the rhythm of hunger. Hides are wrapped tighter than usual. Children's faces are half hidden in fur. The dog squints against blowing snow, ears flattened, tail low, yet he stays near, because storms are wolves made of air, and even dogs know better than to walk them alone. The rhino trench is half buried already, but the elder finds it. She kneels where snow drifts high, brushes with her mitten, reveals the faint furrows beneath, the mark of horn scraping, wide as a sled track. She nods once. The path is still here. The rhino rode it yesterday. The group moves in single file now, one behind the other. Each step placed carefully in the snow pressed by the one before. The sled creaks under extra frost. Rawhide bindings groan as if tired of the weather too. The wind tears sound from mouths before words can form. Conversation dies in the storm, replaced only by the crunch of snow, the rattle of gear, the low panting of the dog weaving from side to side. Children stumble often, pulled up quickly by hands that never let go for long. Adults press forward with the stubborn rhythm of people who know stopping is the same as surrender. The trench is their lifeline now. Without it, they would lose direction in moments. The horizon is gone. The sky is the same white as the ground. Up and down blur into sameness. Only the scraped path of the rhinoceros separates travel from wandering. Hours pass without measure. The storm does not care for clocks. The sun hides behind clouds thick as wool. Shadows vanish completely. The world is only brightness and wind. At last, the elder raises her staff. They stop near a low hollow where snow banks high against a ridge. The wind breaks slightly here. Shelter is enough reason to rest. Hides are pulled from the sled, stretched into walls. Fire coaxed painfully from stubborn embers. The flame sputters at first, then rises defiantly. Smoke is whipped sideways by the wind before climbing. The children huddle close, cheeks raw from frost, hands stiff but grateful for warmth. Food is simple, a few strips of dried meat boiled in a shallow pot. Roots softened again until chewable. The broth is thin, but hot. And hot is the difference between endurance and collapse. The elder tells them softly, through the storm's roar, that the rhino is ahead somewhere still walking, still scraping snow aside, still chewing grass beneath ice. She says the animal does not fear the storm. It does not hesitate. It moves forward. And so must we. The children ask if the rhino knows we are following it. The elder shakes her head. No. But perhaps it knows the land so well that even storms cannot erase its memory. Perhaps it walks paths that existed before the wind was born. They sleep early that night, pressed close under hides, fire burning low but steady. Outside, the storm screams against the walls. Inside, breaths rise and fall in rhythm, a quiet defiance against weather that wanted them silent. Morning is not brighter, but it is slightly less angry. The wind eases. The snow still drifts, but with less violence. The trench is nearly gone now, covered through the night. But the elder finds its faint shadow beneath crust. She kneels, brushes again with her mitten. There it is. The path is always there if you are patient. They follow again, step by step. Each movement heavy, but each one forward. By midday, the storm thins into scattered gusts. The sky shows a hint of pale blue. Shadows return like shy guests to the snow. The horizon reappears, jagged ridges in the far distance. And with the clearing, new tracks appear beside the trench. Not human, not dog, not reindeer either. These are paw prints wide and deep. Wolves again, following the same road, drawn by the same promise. The dog growls low, hackles rising. The elder studies the prints. She says the wolves know the trench as well as we do. They too understand it is survival carved into snow. They will follow until hunger decides who eats first. That afternoon, the group reaches a sheltered valley where the rhino scraped snow aside into great furrows. The grasses beneath are shredded, but still thick enough to gather. Children pull handfuls eagerly. Adults dig deeper for roots loosened by the horn. The dog digs too, nose buried in soil, sneezing when he bites a bitter root. Here they decide to rest longer. The storm drained them more than hunger did. Hides are raised higher around fire. The sled unpacked just enough to feel like staying a while. The fire burns brighter tonight, fed with branches gathered from the valley's edge. The warmth is rare comfort. The stew tastes better because of it, even though it is the same thin broth as yesterday. As darkness falls, the elder begins a story. She tells of another storm long ago, fiercer even than this one, when snow-buried shelters and winds screamed for days. The tribe was certain they would die. But one morning, when the storm eased, they found a trench waiting just outside camp. A wide scrape through drifts leading to a valley rich with grass and reindeer. The rhino had passed in the night, carving salvation into snow. The people followed and survived. The children ask if the rhino meant to save them. The elder only shrugs, smiles faintly. Sometimes survival does not need intention. It only needs coincidence. And coincidence feels like kindness when you are hungry. Wolves howl that night again, closer than before. The dog bristles but stays near the fire. Human sits silent, listening, knowing the wolves follow the same trench, bound to the same hunger. Morning comes gray again. The trench continues east, wide and deliberate. The group rises stiff but determined. Packs tied down, sled dragged forward again. dogs trotting ahead as if storms never happened. The horizon stretches endlessly, but the trench is always there, carved into snow by hunger, carried forward by hope, and the people follow still, because there is no other road across the frozen tundra. Late winter has a personality all its own. It is not fresh like early snow, not silent like the deep dark of mid-season. It is sharp, impatient, mean in small ways. It tricks you into thinking warmth is close, then claws you with wind sharper than knives. It teases you with light that fades too quickly. It is a guest that overstays and then refuses to leave. The people rise from hides with groans, joints stiff as frozen wood, bellies hollow despite last night's stew. The dog yawns widely, ribs showing under thick fur. His tail wags once, half-hearted. He knows the day will be long. The fire is coaxed alive again, each spark a negotiation with cold air that tries to snuff it instantly. Breath clouds the hut like smoke until smoke itself replaces it. Pot set above flame. Broth reheated again. Rabbit bones boiled so many times they contribute only the faintest flavor now. Water tastes like work, but still they sip. The rhino trench is there still, carved wide across the snow, curving toward the east. The elder kneels to study it. Fingers trace edges. She nods quietly. It was here not long ago, still scraping, still moving, still carrying them forward without knowing. They pack the sled again, hides stiff with frost cracking as they fold. Spears checked again. The dog runs ahead briefly before circling back, as if confirming the trench belongs to him now too. Hunger walks with them today, closer than before. It whispers louder with every step, reminding them how thin their faces are now, how bones press under skin like unwelcome visitors. Children complain softly, but keep moving. They know no one listens to complaints here. The tundra does not negotiate. The trench leads across an open plain scoured by wind, snow polished hard as glass. Each step crunches shallow but steady, easier walking than drifts, but colder too, because the wind has no obstacles here. It cuts across like a blade drawn against every cheek. In the distance, dark shapes move across the whiteness. At first, only specks, then larger. Wolves, they follow too. A dozen bodies weaving low against the wind, ears pricked forward, tongues lolling pink in frozen air. They do not charge. Not yet. They simply match the pace of the humans, close enough to be noticed, far enough to remind that patience is their greatest weapon. The dog bristles, barks once, high and sharp. The humans hush him quickly. Sound carries, and silence here is armor. The elder gestures the group tighter, spears angled outward, children tucked close to the sled. They walk with discipline now, every step a shield as much as movement. Hours pass with wolves trailing, never closing the gap, never leaving either, shadows always on the horizon, eyes glinting when the sun struggles through thin cloud. By midday, the trench passes near a frozen river. The ice creaks faintly beneath drifts. A hole chipped open weeks ago is visible still, edges frosted white with time. A sign of another tribe, perhaps, Humans are not alone in following these animals. The elder crouches by the hole, peers in, water black and cold beneath. She nods once, scoops with a skin bag, fills it slowly. Each drop is as valuable as meat, maybe more. The children watch wide-eyed as if water itself is a rare treasure. They light a small fire in the shelter of the riverbank, boiling water to thaw more marrow bones. The broth is bitter, thin, but hot. They share it carefully, equal bowls for each hand. The dog receives his share too, licking so eagerly he burns his tongue, sneezes, and licks again anyway. The wolves remain above the bank, pacing slowly, watching. They smell the steam of broth. They know hunger too. After resting, they move again. Wolves follow still, a gray procession mirrored across the tundra. Hunger following hunger. By afternoon, the trench curves toward a ridge where willow scrub breaks through snow. The rhino has stripped branches bare here, scattered twigs across crust. The humans gather what remains. A few bitter buds chewed quickly. Twigs snapped for fire later. Nothing wasted. Nothing ever wasted. The elder reminds them softly. The rhino is more than animal now. It is provider, teacher, guide. Some whisper it is ancestor too, carrying their lives across winters no human could survive alone. The children ask quietly if the rhino knows their names. The elder chuckles low. No. But perhaps the land knows. And perhaps that is enough. The wolves draw closer as dusk falls. Hunger makes patience thinner. Their howls split the sky, echoing across ridges. The children cling tighter to hides. The dog growls but does not run. He knows his size against theirs. Camp is made quickly in a shallow hollow. Fire coaxed bright. Spears stacked within reach. The sled pulled close as wall. Dinner is smaller tonight. Only scraps left to boil. Broth thin as melted snow. Fat long gone. Bones sucked clean days ago. They sip in silence. Each swallow both comfort and disappointment. The wolves circle just beyond firelight, shapes sliding in and out of darkness, glowing eyes catching sparks of flame. They do not attack, but they do not leave. Their presence is louder than any noise. The elder speaks softly over the fire, telling of a time when wolves and men sat by the same trench without conflict. She says there was once an understanding that hunger was shared, that both could take turns and still live. Children listen wide-eyed. Adults nod slowly. Knowing peace with wolves is a memory thinner than the broth in their bowls. Sleep is uneasy. Dreams broken by howls. The dog whines in his sleep, paws twitching as if running away. Humans shift under hides, pressing closer together for warmth and reassurance. Morning gray again, fire coaxed again, broth reheated again, the trench followed again. The wolves are gone when camp is left behind. Their tracks lead east still, following the same path. Hunger does not need companionship, but sometimes it walks in the same footsteps. By midday, the trench brings them to another valley, wide, shallow, full of grass uncovered by rhino scraping. Reindeer tracks scatter here too, fresh, pointed north. The herd fed here recently, perhaps even still nearby. The hunters whisper softly. Spears checked again. Plans murmured through frost breath. They spread slowly. Children left behind near sled. Women gathering roots as cover. Men circling wide. The reindeer appear at the far end of valley. Antlers black against white snow. A dozen bodies grazing nervously. The hunt begins quietly, then explodes. Spears fly through cold air. Dogs bark wildly. Reindeer scatter. Snow erupts in clouds. One falls. Spear driven deep. It thrashes, then stills. Breath steams once, then vanishes. The tribe rushes forward, knives of flint flashing. Hide cut quickly before wolves arrive. Meat stripped in strips, blood steaming red against snow. The children watch with wide eyes, half fear, half hunger. The wolves do appear moments later, circling at valley's edge, drawn by smell, by sound, by instinct older than memory. The elder gestures sharply, meat loaded onto sled quickly, fat packed into hides, bones broken for marrow on the spot, everything taken as fast as possible. Nothing left if it can be carried. Then they retreat. Fire waiting in camp, wolves rushing to carcass left behind. The sound of snarls echoing through dusk. Around the fire that night, humans eat until bellies ache. Meat roasted, fat dripping, broth rich again for the first time in weeks. Children laugh between mouthfuls. Dog gnaws happily on a bone longer than his head. Adults chew slowly but with relief written across tired faces. The elder reminds them softly, it was the trench that brought us here. Without it, we would not have found the herd. Without it, wolves would have eaten first. The fire burns high with fresh fat. Sparks leap like joy into the night sky. Wolves howl in the distance still. But tonight the sound feels less threatening. More like a chorus that shares the same hunger song. The rhino sleeps somewhere ahead again, scraping snow in its dreams, carrying survival for creatures that never thanked it properly. And tomorrow, the people will rise again, pack again, follow again, because in the tundra, life is not about victory. It is about staying close enough to hunger without letting it devour you. Spring in Siberia does not arrive like a celebration. It arrives like a negotiation. Snow does not vanish all at once. It sulks, lingers, melts in patches only to freeze again at night. Water drips reluctantly from ridges, gathers in shallow pools that taste of mud and ice together. The people wake to a softer light today. The sky is no longer a lid of gray iron. It is pale blue smeared with streaks of thin cloud. The air smells faintly different too. Sharper, damp with the promise of thaw. The dog lifts his nose and sniffs as if confirming what humans already suspect. Something is changing. The rhino trench looks different as well, its edges less crisp, snow slumping inward where warmth has begun nibbling. Pools of water form at the bottom of the scrape, reflecting the sky in puddles like small mirrors. The elder kneels to touch one with a fingertip, shakes her head slowly. It is early, too early. But spring has started to whisper anyway. They pack camp more easily today, hides less stiff with frost, hands less pained by cold. Children chatter more than usual, kicking at slush in the trench with boots, laughing at the way it splashes instead of squeaks. Still, hunger remains close. The reindeer from last valley gave meat for a time, but it does not last forever. Dried strips are nearly gone. Fat boiled and eaten already. Bones cracked and sucked clean. Every victory fades quickly here. The trench leads them toward a low ridge. On the far side, snow thins to reveal patches of ground. Brown grass matted flat from months of ice, brittle but visible. The sight makes everyone pause. Eyes widen as if green shoots were gold coins scattered across dirt. Children rush to pull handfuls of grass, chewing it before adults can stop them. Faces twist instantly at the bitterness. They spit, laugh, pretend they liked it anyway. Adults smile faintly, bend down to collect roots instead. These will soften in broth at least. By midday, the sun warms enough to soften snow further. Water trickles down slopes, forming rivulets that chatter against stones. The sound is almost shocking after months of silence and wind. The elder closes her eyes briefly, listening, nodding. It is the voice of spring arriving late to the feast. They stop near a stream breaking free from ice. Its surface cracks in long, jagged lines. Water gushes beneath with urgency. Children kneel to scoop handfuls, drinking greedily. Adults refill skin bags carefully. The dog splashes paws and licks at the current, sneezing when water bites cold at his nose. The elder warns gently. Spring water carries trickery too. Too much and stomachs will protest. Moderation is survival even when abundance feels near. They light a small fire on the bank. Meat boiled thin again. Mixed with first roots of willow and grass, shoots gathered nearby. The taste is new, sharper, less heavy than winter food. The children grimace at the bitterness but chew anyway. It is change. And change tastes strange at first. The wolves appear again by afternoon, moving along the ridge above. Their bodies leaner now than before. Hunger paints their ribs like lines on parchment. They do not howl today. They only watch. Tongues lolling, eyes bright with the same recognition that people carry. Spring has come, but not enough yet. The elder raises a hand. The group stops. She points at the wolves calmly, reminds the children in low voice. They follow as we do. They hunger as we do. They wait for the same grass, the same herds. Do not hate them. Do not love them either. Just respect. The trench carries them toward a wide valley. Here snow has melted in great patches, exposing earth, scattered stones, tufts of green daring to rise already. The rhino has been here recently. Wide areas scraped clear, grass chewed down, droppings fresh, steaming faintly in sunlight. The tribe cheers softly, almost a whisper of joy. They scatter quickly, pulling roots, digging soil loosened by horn, collecting shoots. Even the children help without complaint. For once, food does not hide under thick ice. It shows itself willingly. The dog digs too, nose buried deep. He emerges with a root hanging from jaws, wagging tail as if he personally invented spring. Children laugh at him, share pieces reluctantly when he drops it proudly at their feet. They camp that night in the valley itself, shelters easier to build where poles press into softening ground instead of frozen crust. Firewood gathered more plentifully from shrubs uncovered by melt. Fire burns brighter than usual, crackling happily instead of struggling for life. Dinner tastes better tonight, roots fresh instead of dried, shoots green instead of brittle, broth thicker. Children lick bowls and ask for more. Adults smile quietly, knowing hunger will always return, but allowing one evening of relief. The elder tells a story by firelight, her voice softer now, more patient than in winter. She speaks of the first spring her grandmother remembered, when animals returned north along rivers, when geese filled sky with sound, when reindeer calves stumbled on new legs, when mammoth herds churned plains with heavy steps. She says spring is not a gift, it is a reminder that survival has a season too. Children listen wide-eyed, imagining skies black with birds, imagining plains alive with woolly giants, imagining rivers breaking free like cages flung open. Their eyes drift closed slowly, not from fear tonight, but from fullness, from warmth, from something close to comfort. The dog lies near fire, belly round with scraps, tail thumping softly in dream. Outside, wolves prowl still, but they do not approach. The valley has given food to all today. Morning arrives with brighter light than usual. Sun climbs higher, shadows shorter, snow dripping faster from ridges. The trench points onward again, curving now toward the river valley in the distance. The people rise with less groaning, pack sled with lighter hearts. Children laugh, chasing each other in slush. Adults walk with stronger steps. Fire is doused, camp left behind. Trench followed again. As they move, birds appear overhead. A small flock of geese honks loudly, flying north with determination. The sound startles children. They point, laugh, run beneath wings as if racing them. Adults smile faintly. Geese mean rivers opening, fish returning, food returning in new form. By afternoon, they reach the edge of the river valley. The trench leads straight down its slope. The rhino has carved through snowbanks to reach water beneath ice. Great gouges mark where horn and hoof broke crust. Pools of water shine dark and clear. They gather quickly, filling skins, drinking deeply, washing faces and hands for the first time in weeks. The shock of water so cold it feels alive makes children squeal. Adults sigh with relief. The dog plunges paws in again, splashing joyfully. The elder reminds them softly, this is not abundance yet. It is only the edge of it. Do not forget how winter feels. Do not forget hunger just because green shows itself. The tundra is generous only when you treat it as dangerous still. That night, camp is set by the riverbank. Firelight dances against melting ice. The sound of running water lulls them as they eat again. Broth thicker with roots, shoots boiled tender, meat scraps added still. The elder looks into flames, says quietly, the rhino leads us here each year, always toward rivers as spring begins, always to water when thirst is loudest. Perhaps it knows more than hunger alone. Perhaps it carries a map older than us, older than wolves, older even than mammoths. Silence follows her words. Only the fire and the river answer. Children drift to sleep with hands still sticky from roots. Adults watch the dark carefully. Wolves howl faintly upstream, but not too close. The dog lifts his head once, ears twitching, then lowers it again, tail thumping softly. He too trusts the fire tonight. And the rhino still moves somewhere ahead, scraping thawing snow with horn, carving roads through meltwater and slush, chewing grasses fresh with new growth. The trench is not just winter's lifeline now. It is spring's beginning. The people will follow still, as they always do. Because in the tundra, survival is not about fighting the season. It is about walking beside it, even when it wears the horn of a rhinoceros. The river does not sleep anymore. Its ice breaks louder each day, groaning, cracking, snapping apart in slow violence. Water pushes beneath with restless urgency, forcing its way to sky after months in darkness. The people wake to this sound, and it feels almost like song. The rhino trench is softer now, its edges melting into slush. Water fills the bottom in thin rivulets that run downhill toward the river. The horn-carved path is still visible, though, still guiding them forward, still proof that hunger with weight and patience always finds the way. The people pack camp slowly, not with dread today, but with something like relief. Hides fold easier when they are not frozen stiff. Poles press easier into soil that is damp instead of stone hard. Children laugh, chasing each other in mud puddles that yesterday were ice. Adults let them laugh, because laughter is another kind of food. Birds call from above, louder than in weeks. Flocks move north in wide arrows against the sky. Their cries fill the tundra with sound. The dog barks once at them, confused why the air has decided to come alive. The children point upward, shouting names they were taught for each bird: goose, swan, duck. Words pass down like heirlooms even when the birds themselves vanish for half the year. The trench curves along the riverbank, leading toward meadows opening in patches of brown and green. Here reindeer have gathered, thin still from winter but already grazing on fresh shoots. Their antlers rise like branches from moving forests of fur. The tribe stops, watching silently. Hunger stirs again, but so does caution. Reindeer are meat, hides, bones, tools, but they are also fast, alert, and plentiful enough that wolves are near whenever they appear. The elder kneels at the trench's edge, touches a patch of thawed grass with reverence. She says softly, "The rhino brought us here again. It knows where spring is born. It writes the same road each year without maps. We only follow." The children ask if the rhino remembers these paths. The elder chuckles. Perhaps. Or perhaps hunger has a memory older than thought. By midday, they rest near a stand of willow shrubs budding with green tips. The first real green since last year. Leaves unfurling timidly like they are unsure of the world still. The tribe gathers them carefully, chews some raw, saves others to boil later, bitter, sharp, but rich with life that winter denied. The fire burns brighter with willow branches too. Smoke rises, fragrant and unfamiliar after months of dry bone and bark. Children cough, then laugh, tasting spring even in the air. Food is still scarce, but spirits are lighter. For the first time in months, they believe in tomorrow without question. In late afternoon, they climb a ridge above the river, and there, in the distance, mammoths move across the plain, dark shapes enormous against melting snow, fur heavy and matted with winter mud, tusks curving wide like moons tilted sideways, their pace slow, steady, deliberate as glaciers. Each step leaves craters in soil softening beneath thaw. The tribe stands in silence. No one speaks. Even children stop laughing. Mammoths are not just animals here. They are monuments that breathe, moving cliffs with eyes. The elder raises her hand slowly, points, her voice hushed. The giants return each spring. They follow rivers north. They graze on new grass before anyone else can. They remember the way even without trenches. Children cling to adults' legs, staring wide-eyed. The dog growls low but does not bark. He knows instinct when to be quiet. The mammoths ignore them. Of course they do. People are ants beside such weight. The herd moves across plain with casual indifference, tails swishing slowly, calves stumbling clumsily between massive legs, mothers guiding them with tusks and trunks gentle despite size. The elder whispers, "We will follow them too soon, but now we still follow the rhino. First the horn, then the tusks." That is the rhythm of seasons. They watch until herd fades into distance, silhouettes melting into horizon like dark clouds settling low. At dusk they camp by river again. Fire burns against melting ice. Food is thin still. Boiled shoots, scraps of dried meat, broth flavored more by smoke than substance. But spirits are stronger for having seen mammoths. Stories rise with fire again. The elder tells of the first mammoth hunt remembered, when a group built fires to drive a herd toward a pit dug in frozen ground. She says the earth shook with their running, that when one fell, the tribe ate for weeks, sang for months, carved tools that lasted years. She says it was victory and gift both. Children listen wide-eyed, imagining flames higher than trees, beasts running like rivers themselves. Adults nod slowly, remembering that victory against giants was rare, dangerous, never taken lightly. Wolves howl across the plain again, their voices joined by echoes from ridges. The dog growls but curls closer to fire. Humans pull hides tighter and listen, knowing wolves too follow mammoths, too follow rhinos, too follow hunger in whatever shape it wears. Morning gray again, but warmer now. Breath clouds softer in air, frost thinner on hides. The trench still points east, guiding them along river valley where snow shrinks more each day. By midday, the group spots movement across the river. Not wolves, not reindeer, not mammoths, humans, figures dark against snow, smoke rising faint from their camp. Another tribe following the same trench. The elder frowns softly, not in anger, not in fear, only in calculation. Another tribe means competition, but also kinship. They live the same hunger, follow the same horn, pray to the same silence. Children point excitedly, waving, Adults hush them quickly. The distance is safe for now, but distance is always fragile. They keep moving along their side of river, not crossing, not shouting. The other tribe watches too, standing still by their own fire. A moment of recognition passes across the ice. Not peace, not war, just acknowledgement. The elder murmurs softly, "We are never alone here." Even when it feels like it, the tundra holds many footsteps, many fires, many trenches followed at once. That night they camp near bend of river where ice cracks loud. Fire glows against wet stone. Food tastes no better, but silence between bowls is less heavy. Knowing others live out there carries strange comfort. Stories turn toward kinship, of times when tribes met in summer meadows, shared hunts, traded ivory for stone, hides for roots, fire for fire. They remind each other that survival is not only rivalry. Sometimes it is alliance too. The dog sleeps soundly, head on paws. Wolves howl again far away. But the camp does not tense tonight. They are reminded they are not the only fire in the tundra. Morning brighter than before. Sun climbs higher, shadows shorter. Snow shrinking in wider patches each hour. The trench pulls them east still, toward lands greener by the day. They walk with stronger steps now. Bellies not full, but hopeful. Spirits not heavy, but lifted by the weight of giants returning, by the sound of rivers singing again, by the faint smell of soil promising something better than hunger. And always, ahead somewhere, the rhinoceros walks still, scraping snow softer each day, chewing grass thicker each week, carrying an entire world behind it without meaning to. Spring spreads wider each day now. Snow melts in sheets instead of flakes. Ice collapses into rivers with crashes that echo across valleys like drums. Grass rises stubbornly through soil freed from frost, brown at first, then pale green like shy paint on canvas. The tundra is still cold, still harsh, but its grip has loosened. The tribe wakes to warmer air than they remember in months. Their breath clouds faint but thinner, their hides lighter on shoulders. Children stir with less reluctance. Their laughter comes easier now, chasing one another through slush instead of trudging silently through drifts. The fire still burns each morning, but it is no longer desperate. It is companion now, not savior. Smoke drifts lazily instead of clinging frantically to lungs. Wood and branches are easier to gather. They do not measure each stick as if it were gold anymore. The rhino trench still lies before them, but it too is changing. Its edges sag with melt, its bottom filled with water and shoots of grass reclaiming space quickly. The horn's work is being undone by season itself. The elder kneels again at its side, running fingers along the wet groove. She nods slowly, quietly. She whispers that the trench has carried them long enough. It is time to follow rivers now, to follow herds that chase new growth. The rhino has done its part. They eat breakfast of shoots boiled soft, a little meat dried from the reindeer hunt still left, broth thickened with roots dug from wet ground. It tastes sharper, fresher, less bitter than winter food. The children eat eagerly, dog-licking bowls after as if spring tastes better even to him. By midday, the group reaches a wide meadow half free of snow. Reindeer graze openly here. calves stumbling on thin legs, herds moving nervously but constantly feeding. Ravens circle overhead, waiting for scraps that never come willingly. The tribe does not hunt today. The elder shakes her head, saying softly, "Not yet. There is grass for them still. There is food elsewhere for us still." Patience is more powerful than hunger when herds are this thin from winter. They move on, following river more than trench now. The rhino's path fades with every mile, replaced by tracks of reindeer, mammoths, wolves, all moving north together. In late afternoon, they pause near riverbank, thick with geese. The birds splash into water with loud cries, wings beating, feathers scattering sunlight like sparks. Children laugh chasing them, but only for play. No one tries to catch one yet. The tribe knows they are too lean now. Better later when they return fatter. The dog barks happily at the flock, splashing into water up to chest, then retreating shivering, shaking droplets across children who squeal and scold. Adults smile quietly, letting laughter echo, because laughter is another kind of fire when the tundra loosens. That night camp is set near meadow's edge, firewood plentiful from branches thawed free. Smoke rises in long, calm columns instead of frantic spirals. Dinner is broth thick with fresh shoots, bark shaved for flavor, scraps of fat boiled until stew coats lips again. The elder speaks by firelight, her voice soft, steady. She tells them the rhino moves north now too, toward pastures richer than this valley, toward rivers fuller than this one. She says it walks still, scraping snow wherever snow dares remain. Its horn still teaching survival even when people no longer need to follow step for step. Children ask if they will see the rhino again. The elder shrugs gently, perhaps, but perhaps it does not matter. Its path is written already in memory, carved into more than snow, carved into thought, carved into rhythm of living here. Adults nod slowly. They know the trench has guided them through hardest months. They know hunger was answered because of it. They know each step they took this winter was easier because something larger walked before them. Wolves howl in distance still, but the sound feels different now. Less threat, more chorus. Hunger is not gone for them, but it is spread thinner across tundra rich again. Wolves will eat, humans will eat. Rivers will feed both. Morning arrives brighter. Sun climbs higher than anyone remembers since last summer. Shadows short, warmth stronger on skin even through hides. The children splash in river without being told no. Their laughter like birds. Their play a promise that spring is more than survival. It is living again. The trench vanishes gradually as days pass. Melt water erases edges. Grass covers lines. What was lifeline becomes memory. The people do not panic at its absence. They do not need it now. Rivers and herds carry them north. Mammoths lead them by tusk and trunk. Reindeer by antler and hoof. Birds by wing and call. But they remember. They always remember. One evening, the elder gathers them by fire. She sprinkles red ochre into flames. The sparks glow brighter. She says softly, "This is for the horn that carried us. This is for the trench that fed us. This is for the hunger that taught us to walk together." The children repeat softly after her, faces lit orange by flame, words heavy with memory older than speech. The dog lifts head and whines low as if joining prayer. Adults bow heads briefly, silent but full of the same thought. Gratitude to something that never asked to be thanked. They sleep that night not with fear, but with dreams of grass, rivers, herds, warmth. Days stretch longer. Light stays past what winter once demanded. Nights shorter, less heavy, stars less urgent now that the sun does its work again. The tundra changes slowly but surely. Meadows green wider each day. Valleys fill with reindeer calves strong now on legs. Mammoth herds stir dust from soil as heavy steps churn earth. Birds fill sky with endless sound. Wolves lope lean but confident behind herds, always following as humans follow. The rhino itself is not seen again, but its trench remains in mind. Every scrape remembered, every furrow recalled, every valley fed by its hunger turned into story by human mouths. The elder says softly on last night before turning north with herds, "The rhinoceros does not know our names, does not know our fire, does not know our hunger, but it carried us anyway, not from kindness, not from intention, only from its own survival, and sometimes survival of one is survival of all." The people nod, silently agreeing. They know they will tell this story again next winter. They know they will follow again when snow buries ground and hunger sharpens teeth. They know the trench will appear again under horn heavy with patience. They know they will survive again because of it. And so the fire burns low, embers glowing like tired eyes ready for rest. The river murmurs softly nearby. Grass rustles in night breeze. Wolves howl far away, but no one startles. They sleep with peace tonight, because spring has promised enough to carry them forward. The tundra exhales quietly as if letting them stay one more season. And somewhere ahead in the distance, the woolly rhinoceros keeps walking, horn low, scraping snow stubbornly from ground still frozen in patches, eating slowly, leaving trenches behind like sentences carved into earth, sentences that others will read tomorrow, and the day after, and the year after. The animal does not know it is history, does not know it is myth, does not know it is lifeline for humans who whisper gratitude by firelight. It only walks, only scrapes, only eats. And yet, in doing so, it keeps an entire people alive across tundra that would rather see them gone.